Hi, folks. Sophia back here, interviewing interesting people. I find interesting on YouTube. And this evening, I have Dusty Smith, um, who hosts a twice weekly stream on his Cult of Dusty channel. The show is called Progressive Talk Live. And he also hosts a show on Wednesday with an atheist perspective. Welcome, Dusty.
Thank you. Glad to be here. Appreciate you inviting me.
Yeah, we've actually got quite a bit in common. We're both atheists. We both like the odd spliff, and we're both blocked by TJ.
Yeah, well, I'm not blocked by TJ, actually. You're probably blocked by TJ because you're following me. He blocked everybody that followed me, but he did not block me. So that's craziness. Basically, he couldn't take my fan base backing me up. He wants his fan base backing him up when he shits on me because he's really insecure. But no, he didn't block me.
Yeah, I mean, I remember, you know, over a decade ago on YouTube, atheists were taking on Christians,
Those are
and
the good
sort of atheists won that argument, as we would. And then there was sort of a split in the atheist community. Some ended up, shall we say, being a gateway to the alt right. And I don't care what TJ now says. I saw the Volsh thing we did with Volsh trying to rehabilitate him. But TJ, you're going to have to say a lot. You're going to have to do a lot more than to say, "I'm sorry for some of the stuff I said," because I saw videos where you were literally hating on trans people.
Yep, he got to step it up for sure if he wants real absolution, in my opinion. But, a lot of the lefty community doesn't agree with me. They lost TJ so based. He apologized once on Voss, even though he doesn't use the platform that he has 1 million subscribers on that he used to hurt people to try to make amends. It's fine. He doesn't have to do that. But yes, he does, in my opinion.
Well, there was one video in particular with TJ I remember where it was a someone who was non-binary or gender fluid or gender non-conformist, sorry, and he was just hating on them, and they were like, I don't know, a student, and I just thought, you're just a bully. That's what you are. Yeah.
That's what they've always done. They search the internet for the minutia that people they consider on the left are doing, and they blow it out of proportion to freak their audience out, make them seem
Yeah.
like the left is a way bigger problem, and these SJWs are a way bigger problem than they actually are. Like, I did a show 4 or 5 times, and 90% of the show was them reading feminist slam poetry. Like, that was something really important we need to focus on while Trump was in office, fucking up the country. We really need to be focusing on some college kids reading poetry. It's just the whole thing's so stupid.
As I said, there was a split. You had people like TJ, and obviously from over here, Sargon of Wank of Sargon of Avocados. I like to call him Sargon of Wankard. That's a very British joke, but
After the route, but I was actually watching a video the other day where TJ and Sargon of Akkad were on a stream together, and TJ was basically just kissing his ass about how cool Kekistan was. One of the most cringe things in the history of the internet, Kekistan. TJ's like, "Oh, it's so cool and funny. You guys are geniuses for that." Just the biggest suck up in the goddamn world.
well, I don't know if you heard, but Carl basically got a load of media here because he sent a tweet to a Labour MP called Jess Phillips saying, "Oh, I wouldn't bother raping you," and he thought somehow this was funny.
Yeah, so, she's like a sexual assault survivor too.
Yeah,
and he's sending that to her, and he actually made a second video where he said that maybe if he was drunk enough, maybe he would rape her, which didn't go over very well.
Yeah, the thing is, he did this BBC interview with Victoria Derbyshire, and it is the most cringeworthy of all interviews I've seen ever. And
the one where she asked him what policies he would implement. He was like, "Well, what can I even implement?" Off the top of his head.
No. This
another one.
No, that was the Sky News one.
Okay.
No, this was another one, and it was like she said, "This isn't funny," and he goes, "Oh, you need to get a sense of humor," and I was like, Carl, sending stuff to women about rape is not fucking funny.
It is to them, though. The cruelty is the point.
Yeah,
as long as it upsets people, that's the only thing they care about. Is their children. They're 12-year-old boys trapped in grown bodies, and just upsetting people is the only thing they get off on. And so that's
Yeah.
what their audience loves. That's what he makes what hundreds of thousands of dollars doing that. So
Yeah.
that's what the world rewards that for some reason.
Yeah. And I was going to say, so we had this split with the atheist community, as I said, Carl and TJ and various others. And then there was you and Steve Stives. But funny enough, Steve Stives was another one who blocked me, but he doesn't do it anymore. He now follows me, funny enough. And I
Me
have
too.
spoken to him.
Same.
Yeah. I remember Steve saying that basically some of these atheists were just bullies who were just looking for another, that once they'd argued enough with Christians, they were just looking for another, sort of looking for another victim. Now, don't get me wrong. I think Christians and various other religious groups have got a lot to answer for, which we will get into soon. But my position is: look, I have friends who are Christians. I don't believe in God. I find it bizarre, to be blunt about it.
Ridiculous.
Yeah. But if it gives them strength, if it gives them comfort, do what you want. Just don't bother me with it. That's kind of my position.
I'm a little
But
bit more extreme. I think that Christianity, is hurting our society, and we should exterminate it as soon as possible by educating people logic and reason. So I'm like more aggressive, but I get where you're coming from.
well, I mean, I'm firstly, I am an atheist, but first of all, I'm a secularist. So, in other words, I believe that people should have the freedom to believe in whatever they want to believe in, so long as
Yeah,
they
I
don't
agree.
shove it down my throat. That's kind of
Yeah, I agree.
where I draw the
Definitely,
line.
you can believe whatever you want to believe. Sure.
But I
No
could sit here and point out the numerous fucking hypocrisies there are with religious belief. I mean, for instance, right? Take this for an instant. Che Guevara and Jesus Christ were both failed revolutionaries in their lifetime, right? Yet, if you hear the voice of Jesus, you're saved. If you hear the voice of Che Guevara, you get sent to the lunatic asylum.
Yeah, you're schizophrenic.
Yeah. Here's another one, right? Both George W. Bush and Tony Blair said that God guided them in on their decision to illegally invade Iraq. And I remember at the time thinking, George Bush was renowned when he was Texas, or infamous, shall I say, is a more appropriate word, when he was Texas governor for sending people to, the death chambers.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I thought, well, George Bush claims that God guided him to go and murder, almost 1 million people. I bet there were people on death row claiming that, they murdered people because they heard a voice of God.
Yep. But
Yeah.
so much for pro-life when it comes to them.
Yeah. And I remember this one actually triggered a Christian friend of mine when I pointed this out. I said, right, take this instance, right? Kid, right, believes of a Christian couple, right, says that they are living life according to the instructions they're getting from fairies at the bottom of the garden. That Christian couple would have them in therapy immediately, right? Yet they, say to that kid, you've got to come to church on a Sunday because, you need to get instruction from God on how to live your life.
It's just socially acceptable insanity.
Yeah. I actually, I'm physically disabled, and I do remember the day I came out of the atheist closet. I was 13, and the teachers in my school decided to have a training afternoon, or Sky, more like, but so all the students had to go to the assembly hall, and we had to listen to this born-again Christian, tell us about how great God was. And first of all, I was pissed off because my family are Jewish, not Christian. So I'm having another religion shoved down my throat. But I don't care for any religion by this point because I'm getting sick and tired of it being shoved down my throat. So she gives a talk about how great God is. She said, anyone got any questions? I stuck my hand up. I went, if God's so great, why am I disabled? Well, we haven't lived our life according to the Bible enough.
It's your fault. Blame the victim.
Hold on. Right. You believe that the word of some crusty old book is the word of some mystical sky daddy. Well, why don't you just use that logic and say the word of God is the Sporting Almanac of 1975. Yeah, it doesn't. Just because some book says something does not make it true.
Well, they're brainwashed. I was brainwashed the same way, so I understand why they believe that, even though it's frustrating. But I grew up in it. I grew up in Mississippi, the most religious state in America, and my family, the people that loved me and took care of me, and were my rock in this universe, told me it was true. And like, I had no reason to doubt them. Why would they lie to me? I know that they didn't mean me harm. My cats are fighting right now. As always, I have a cat sanctuary, and I had 10 cats around me running around. You might hear them. So we have to deal with that. That's always fun. But yeah, like I was like, why would they lie to me? They're obviously taking very good care of me. They love me. So I just believed them. I didn't realize that they didn't know they were lying. They believed it just like I did. They were taught by their parents just like I was. And so, you just got to eventually question. And once you question, in my opinion, it's over for religion, but you have to get to that point where you're even allowing yourself to question, because they threaten you with eternal torture. And, especially when I was a kid, I was like, oh my God, well, I can't even question this, because you might be tortured forever by simply questioning. Why would you do anything that would even get you tortured for 10 minutes, much less forever? And so I just never allowed myself to question what I was told until I was like in my 30s. So, and even then it was very difficult. So it's really hard to get over that programming.
I remember there was a trans friend of mine who basically said, because I used to be a lot more militant about being an atheist. And they said, what have you got against religion? And I went, oh, geez, where do I start with the Catholic Church?
You got a minute?
War, incest, genocide, pedophilia, subjugation of not just the subjugation of women, but subjugation of minorities as well. Let's not forget that religion was used as an excuse for slavery.
Yeah, now they're basically blaming trans people for the coronavirus. So let's just start there.
I've seen it. And of course, the other reason I've got you on is you are a trans ally. And what amazes me about you is you come from Mississippi, not known for being the most progressive of places in the United States, is it?
That's very true.
I remember Harry went, yeah, it's the 50th state for trans people. Yeah. And yet you've been a really big trans ally. And you've spoken out against the same trans folks we speak out against. So how come you've been such a trans ally?
Well, I didn't start out to be a trans ally. It wasn't something that I said, hey, I'm going to be a trans ally and then work to do that. Like you said, I grew up in Mississippi and had no experience growing up with trans people. And I was just as ignorant as anybody, and I'm sure that I was also transphobic for a long period of time. But then I tried to start getting out of the whole anti-SJW mindset and researching what gender was and, HRT, hormones, biology. And I actually made a video about what gender is. And even that video, in my opinion, is transphobic. That was only, 4 or 5 years ago, probably, maybe even less. But I did learn a lot in that video. And as I continue to learn more and more and more about the issues, I just realized the trans position is the correct position. And I like to be right. And so basically, I didn't set out to be a trans ally, but I got there through logic. When you actually research what gender is and how it's not necessarily tied to your birth sex organs, and you start researching the biology behind HRT and how somebody who's taken HRT biologically is closer to a cis woman or man, depending on what they're transitioning to, than they are to, whatever your sex organs were when you were born. So you start looking at these things and you start realizing, okay, well, that's the logical position. And so I'm going to stand up and fight for the right position. And on top of that, I think trans people have been, demonized and oppressed about as, maybe not as bad as black people, but maybe even, in some cases worse than that. And to be a hero has always been somebody who tries to stand up for those that are most oppressed and marginalized. And they try to use their privilege and their power to help those that need it the most, not to bully them and put them down and to add to their problems. And so I know it's just comes from not only a logical standpoint, but from a moral standpoint of doing the right thing, I guess.
Doesn't Mississippi have a similar bathroom law that North Carolina had?
I'm
I
not
heard
sure,
so.
not sure about that.
I
I
heard
don't, I don't
heard
recall
something.
ever seeing a trans person here. I'm sure there have been, and obviously, you can't always tell, but I don't recall it. So it's not
Yeah.
something that I've been exposed to a lot here, to be honest with you.
Well, I would imagine that a lot of trans people, if they do live in Mississippi, would probably live in stealth for their own safety.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
definitely.
uh, the the North Carolina bathroom law. I mean, that really was shocking.
What is the law?
Well, the law, I think it's now been repealed, but it was that basically trans people had to go into the bathroom of their birth gender.
So stupid. It's all so stupid.
I
Like,
mean, well, how do they know? I mean, are they going to employ full-time genital inspectors on the doors of public bathrooms?
yeah, these are the people that hate big government. How can you get a bigger government than checking people's genitalia as they go into the bathrooms? I mean, it's just so stupid. And
Well,
even then, it doesn't always match up because you have uh, reassignment surgery. So even then, you're not always going to know.
well, uh, my theory is essentially as soon as the Supreme Court ruled on gay marriage, I kind of knew what would happen would be trans people would be next in the firing line for the far right, because essentially they've got to blame some minority or other to distract from the
Hmm.
fact that, shall we say, I don't want to use this word with you, but um, the reason rednecks are getting fucked up the arse is because of capitalism, right?
Hmm.
It's all this distraction from the fact that the capitalist system is what is actually, you know,
Yeah, well, it's
pushing them alive.
always very productive for them to blame blacks and gays. And then as time has gone by, it's become less socially acceptable to attack blacks and gays. They still attack the gays plenty, but not nearly as much as they used to because of how more socially acceptable it is to be gay. But now, they have to pick a new boogeyman. So now trans is the new boogeyman because trans people are standing up and actually, for the first time in history, without just being killed, they're still being killed, but without being killed massively, they're allowed to stand up and try to advocate for their rights. And since they're more in the public's eye, they're becoming an easier target to be with these boogeyman of these religious assholes.
But it kind of reminds me, it might seem irrelevant, but it kind of reminded me of what used to happen with US foreign policy. There would always be like the enemy of the month. It was Saddam Hussein, and before that it was General Noriega, and
The Russians.
before that it was the Ayatollah, and before that it was Ho Chi Minh. There's always got to be some enemy of the month for the US to sort of say this is the person who's sponsoring terrorism and whipping up hate in the world, when in fact actually it's US foreign policy which is doing that. I always like to remind Americans there's more than one September the 11th. There's September the 11th 1973, when a CIA backed coup in Chile put General Pinochet and a military junta in power, who went on to kill thousands of people.
Yeah, we
um
always do that. We always interfere in everybody else's government, and then when they interfere in ours, we're like, "Oh my God!" We clutch our pearls. I can't believe you interfered in our government, even though we've been doing that for as long as America has existed. To you guys,
Yeah, I mean, look, my opinion on 9/11 is, first of all, no, it's not an inside job, Alex Jones. And secondly, it was a consequence of US foreign policy. It was, I'm not saying
blowback.
that, yeah, it was giving the US government a bloody nose. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying these terrorists should have done it. They should definitely not have done it.
Hmm.
Um, but as I say, it was blowback.
It's cause and effect.
Um,
They were evil for doing it, but you know, they wanted us to stop fucking with their country, so
um,
they knows.
Something we both also have, well, as I said, we've got a few things in common, but um, you also, I did listen to Alex Jones for a while. I mean, I didn't listen. I didn't listen for very long because I sort of twigged that he was an anti-Semite, and I'm Jewish. Um, But you were an avid listener, weren't you? And I think you made a video about how Alex Jones ruined your life. You want to quickly?
Yes. Well, that's a joke, obviously. He didn't ruin my life. I did make a video saying that. But yeah, I used to listen to Alex Jones 3 hours every day. I'm back in my conservative Christian years, and he convinced me the world was going to collapse any 5 seconds now. And so I became sort of I don't know if I'd call myself a doomsday prepper, but I did have a 40-acre compound out in the Ozark Mountains that was off the grid and self-sufficient. And I sat out there and raised animals and crops and prepared for the economy to collapse. And that sucked. It was horrible because I'm a horrible fucking farmer, and sheep are assholes. You get butted in the balls by a sheep about 30 times, and you're about done with that. So wasn't that great. I wasted a lot of money on that, but at least I got out of it eventually. So gotta look at the bright side of it.
I always, I mean, you might not get this joke, but I always wanted to ring into Alex Jones and say to him, "Hey, Alex, they're behind you," which is a very sort of British. We have this tradition of pantomime where everyone goes, "They're behind you." Oh no, they're not.
Yeah, gotta watch him. He's gonna eat you. He's gonna eat us all. You see where he was talking about killing and string up his neighbors and gutting them for his kids?
He's just saying anything for attention now that he's been banned from every social media platform. You want to know the irony? Here's an irony for you. I don't know if you know this, right? So, to counter the COVID-19, the government here are trialing a track and trace app in the Isle of Wight. Similar to
Illuminati. Mark of the Beast is coming. You better watch it.
Yeah. Similar to what they've done in South Korea, and South Korea is one of those countries which has been on top of the COVID-19 pandemic. Mm-hmm. Guess who's a resident of the Isle of Wight?
Who's that?
David Icke.
Oh shit! The lizard men are out there with him.
You see, another anti-Semite. You see, people don't realize when Alex Jones, when he bangs on about the New World Order conspiracy, when I first heard it, I thought, this sounds familiar. Oh yeah, the learned Protocols of the Learned Elders of Zion. Mm-hmm. You know, the most infamous, anti-Semitic diatribe there's ever been about supposedly us Jews controlling the world economy. Well, if that's true, why is it I'm always broke? If Jews are supposedly
clever, you're not Jewish enough. Gotta try harder with your Jewishness there.
I've heard that. I've actually heard
that. Little goofy little hat on top of your head. That's what you really need.
I've actually heard that from some of the people who believe in this. They say, well, you're not Jewish enough.
You don't look Jewish. Like whatever that means. Well, I usually can't tell Jewish people apart from white folks, so unless they tell me.
Yeah. Well, the thing I often get from a lot of people is, how could you be Jewish and be an atheist? I don't realize that the only thing that qualifies you to be a Jew is that your mum's Jewish. That's it, right?
Yep.
Doesn't matter whether you're religious or anything, right? And to be honest, we do have, obviously, our culture comes from religion, but there is a common history between us. There is a common culture. Yeah.
More than a religion, it's also ethnicity.
Yeah, exactly. So, and David Icke's lizard thing is straight out of the Nazi propaganda playbook. This is how they used to portray Jews in their propaganda, anti-Semitic propaganda.
Dehumanize you first, so it's easier to kill you and oppress you. That's what they've always done with propaganda.
Well, no, he says, oh, well, it's something like that show V, isn't it? That they're wearing false skin and whatever else. And I
love that show. It's my favorite show for the V.
Yeah, which version?
The first version. The other version sucked afterwards, but the first version, it also sucked. But when I was a kid, it was really cool.
Yeah, Kenneth Johnson produced it, the guy who brought The Incredible Hulk to television.
I didn't know that, but it makes sense.
The V, I did like V because it did have sort of reminiscent echoes of the Holocaust in it, which I thought was good. But that is how the Nazis used to portray us. Mm-hmm. So I'm not kidding. I remember I have to educate fucking people about this, and I really could do without it. I was once at a party, and there was this hippie chick called Alison, sorry, that was her name. And she suddenly came up to me and she said, oh, I saw this Alex Jones video. It's really interesting. And I put my drink down and I thought,
Uh-oh.
Oh, here, I'm going to have to explain to you that this guy is a far right nut who really hates this, that, and the other people. I mean, one of the things I worry about coming out of the COVID-19 pandemic is it's not just going to be, they're not just going to be hating on people with brown skin, they're going to be hating on people with yellow skin. And,
Mm-hmm.
we're already hearing it from Alex Jones, that COVID-19 is a Chinese bioweapon.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
It attacks the testicles. That has New
well,
World Order written all over it.
well, if it is right, it's a really shit bioweapon.
Yeah.
Um,
Kills your own people too. En
yeah.
masse. That's not great for you.
And what I worry about is that you're going to have racists who are going to beat up anybody who looks Oriental.
Well, we already have that. I put out a video today where a guy in Vancouver just walked up to an Asian woman on the street and punched her in the face. She didn't say anything to him, just made a beeline over to her and punched her. And it's happening all over the place where the people were like riding by Asian folks in the car screaming, "Are you happy now?" Like they had something to do with it. It's just so stupid. But that's why you got to watch. I mean, I think it's okay to point out that the virus came from China, but to call it the Chinese virus just makes stupid people, more racist than they would normally be. So you have to be very careful about that kind of thing.
Hmm. Um, of course, we both supported Ron Paul at one point. Um,
Yay, Ron Paul.
I've always said that if you want to know why I supported Ron Paul, watch Steve Stiers' video on Ron Paul. The whole bit about, do you think young people supported Ron Paul because they wanted fiscal discipline and balanced budgets and America living within its means, or because he wanted to legalize pot?
Yeah, that because it was the cool thing on the internet. Like I had all the Ron Paul bots, and it did just had a lot of momentum on that. It's kind of like what Bernie had, but oftentimes that doesn't translate to the ballot box. Unfortunately for Bernie.
Yeah, unfortunately, I have to say though, you've changed my mind on something.
What's that?
Biden. You see, I actually I'm primarily a writer, and I do remember I'm on. There is a blog post I've written where I said I couldn't support Biden, blah blah blah, whatever. Um, but then I watched the video you did, and you showed there was, I think it's an immigrant from Iraq saying, I can't support Biden because he voted to bomb my family and whatever else.
Mm-hmm.
And you went, well, what about the fact that, if Biden gets elected, women will keep their reproduction rights, um, the war on trans will be over, blah, 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 blah. And
Mm-hmm.
you actually got a list of the differences between Bernie and Biden.
Mm-hmm.
And there was like really
They're
only,
very similar a lot of ways.
only two real minor differences. One, I think, was on tuition fees, and the other one was on
Mm-hmm.
Medicare, sorry.
Other than that, they're both running on the basic DNC platform, which is basically something Hillary ran on, which is incredibly more progressive than anything Donald Trump's going to put out. But like you said, Donald Trump has already said when he was debating Hillary that if he's in there long enough, he's going to put enough Supreme Court justices in there that will overturn Roe versus Wade and end abortion, and it would just happen automatically. So just that one issue alone, the fact that justices of the Supreme Courts are lifelong positions, so women could lose their right to choose for 30 to 40 years potentially. That one issue alone should be enough to show you the lesser of two evils is Joe Biden. Vote for him. But there's many, many, many more reasons other than that based on policy positions. And yeah, we can relitigate the Iraq War from 20 years ago and use that as a reason to punish ourselves now and let fascist Trump get another 4 years at it. But like 20 years ago, I supported the Iraq War. 20 years ago, I was a Christian who was all gung ho about it. And am I going to punish my fellow Americans and myself now because Joe Biden made the same dumbass decision that I would have made if I was in his shoes 20 years ago? Nope. I'm not going to punish my friends and family, the poor people I live around, and the women who are going to need an abortion in the next 30 years. And it sucks. It's a shit sandwich. The whole
Um,
thing's a shit sandwich, but you got to take a bite of the shit sandwich that has the least amount of shit on it.
I was about to say, it is the South Park line. It's a choice between a shit sandwich and a douchebag.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I would rather the one who doesn't want to carry on with the war on trans is president.
Yeah, well,
Personally,
that was a big part of it. I don't know
I
if you
know.
guys know, but
I
the
know
first.
there are some LGBTQ objections to Biden because he voted for the Defense of Marriage Act. However, Biden has said that he regretted doing that. So,
Mhm.
you know,
There are a lot of reasons to point to things he's done in the past. I don't get me wrong, I don't like Joe Biden. I think Joe Biden is a bad candidate. And I only defend him because it's a two-party system and you don't really have a choice but to pick the lesser evil. But there are a lot of people that want to shit on him for things he's done in the past, which is fine. But I'm more interested on the policies and the platform he's running on right now, because that's a greater indicator of what
yeah,
they're likely to implement once they get in office. And if you actually look at his platform, it's mostly very good and very progressive. Like one of the first things he's going to do is remove the ban on trans people in the military and try to reinstitute trans rights and gay rights. And I actually do think he will do that. A lot of people are like, well, how do you know he's going to do what he's going to do, Dusty? How do you know he's going to do what he says he's going to do? You know, you can't trust these politicians, but like historically, presidential candidates do try to implement the majority of their platform. And so I do think he'll at least attempt to do most of what he says he's going to do. So whether or not he'll be successful remains to be seen. But at any rate, even if he does nothing, it'll be far superior than whatever Trump's going to do, because Trump is going to do stuff. He's continuously doing stuff, and it's almost entirely bad. So either
well,
way, we got to get that guy out of there.
you're basically being ruled by the mafiosi at the moment because he's appointing
Yeah,
all these relatives to fucking positions, and
the Don in chief.
yeah, and he's only interested in basically making a quick buck. Actually, do you know that uh, Trump's operation here has actually asked for EU bailout money? His
Oh, I'm
golf
not
course,
surprised to hear that.
his golf course is up in Scotland. Yeah, they've asked for bailout money. I don't know how
I thought
much you
he's a
know.
billionaire. He's supposed to have all the money in the world, isn't he? He's supposed to be a genius businessman. What happened to the art of the deal?
Yeah, I was gonna say I don't know how much you know about politics here. Um,
I know Boris Johnson got the corona briefly.
yes, he did,
He
and
was going around shaking hands with everybody and bragging about it. That
yes,
dude.
which was a great distraction. Whilst the death toll here rose to the highest in Europe and now the second highest in the world. Um, I was going to say the Labour Party, which is kind of the equivalent to the Democrats. For the last 5 years, we had Jeremy Corbyn as leader, and Jeremy Corbyn kind of was the equivalent to Bernie Sanders.
Mm-hmm.
And ever since he was elected leader, and I voted for him I was a Labour Party member at the time, and I voted for him to be leader. I've met him several times, got various selfies with him. Really nice guy, very earnest. But as soon as he became leader, all the establishment, they were undermining him constantly,
Mm-hmm.
including from within the Labour Party. Um, we had a general election here in 2017, and Corbyn came within 2,500 votes of being elected prime minister, which is a
Mm.
whisker.
Yeah, that's sad to hear. That's like over here it was 80,000, but still very narrow.
Yeah, and we discovered later that basically there was a as well as the official Labour general election campaign, there was a parallel campaign um, basically organised by the corporatist faction, which we call Blairites here, sort of third way Clinton type people. And they were siphoning money and resources to those MPs who were, in line with their ideology, rather than to the marginal seats which Labour could have won to
Mm-hmm.
put us in government. Um, and there were, I mean, you've had this with Bernie, there were countless accusations that Corbyn was anti-Semitic because he criticised the Netanyahu government's treatment
Mm-hmm.
of Palestinians. Of course, which has now turned out to be utter bullshit. It turned out that one person filed more than 50% of the complaints of anti-Semitism against him.
Mm-hmm.
It's all come out now.
Dirty pool.
And unfortunately, it's sad for me to have to say this, but um, it just looked like, in hindsight, it looked like, no matter how much sense and how much appeal Corbyn had. He was never going to win because the establishment just were never going to let him win.
Mm-hmm.
So now we have an establishment candidate who's a bit more like Biden, Keir Starmer, as Labour leader. And sadly, the Labour Party is now going back towards the centre. I can't vote Green because the Green Party are populated with hippie anti-vaxxers.
Mm.
And I know this is a problem in the United States because I remember back in 2016, I wasn't going to support Hillary. I'm just too left wing.
Wasn't popular to do so, that's for sure.
And so I remember I have a friend over in Seattle who's trans, and we had some furious arguments. I was going, I'm going to endorse Jill Stein. And then Jill Stein got in an absolute knot about vaccines. And it was like, oh, Christ, here we go. And I mean, she's a medical doctor. She should know better.
Mm-hmm.
But then
it's frustrating.
But then again, Ron Paul, of course, has been putting out videos saying that COVID-19 is a hoax.
Mm-hmm. We got plenty of that going on here. People are thinking that COVID-19 is the mark of the beast. It's Bill Gates vaccine. They're going to microchip you, and then it's going to lead to the Antichrist being issued in and the rapture. Would you think they would want that? You think that would be a good thing? Seems like they've been waiting for the rapture forever.
Here's the irony. You've got all these fucking preppers, who have been building bunkers under their house and stocking up with canned food, golden guns. You'd think that they would be waiting for something like COVID-19. Yep. But oh no, they're out protesting the lockdown. It's like,
here's your chance, Billy Bob. You got all buckets of food. Use them, but nah, Baskin Robbins is closed, so we got to ride in the street and get your grandma killed.
Yeah, I mean, it's a bit different here. The majority of people are in support of the lockdown. I guess we've just got better education. Why then again, we have...
You couldn't have worse. Impossible to have worse education than Mississippi.
Yeah, well, mind you, then again, this country did vote for Brexit.
That's true, but I wasn't even taught evolution in school growing up, so...
What?
I didn't learn about evolution until I was like 30. Like, seriously, I learned it from Richard Dawkins. Richard Dawkins teaching kids in the UK about evolution is how I learned about evolution when I was a grown-ass man. That was embarrassing.
Here's an interesting fact about Christopher Hitchens, who I know people like Sargon, they think they're they're an embodiment of Christopher Hitchens. No, Christopher Hitchens had wit about him. Okay,
yes,
that's important, right? But the interesting thing about Christopher Hitchens was, I don't know if you know this, but he was pro-life.
Oh, was he? No, I didn't know that.
Yeah, he was.
He did support the Iraq War too, so he had a few positions that I think I disagree with him on.
Yeah, I understood his reasoning. He felt that Islam was a form of fascism which was going to usurp itself in the West. I get that, right? But you don't need to go and bomb Iraq to,
kill a million civilians for it. No thanks. That's just evil. Like, you're the baddies at that point.
Well, yeah. I mean, look, I'll be honest, right? I've had less problems of Muslims for being trans, and we have a higher Muslim population here than you do percentage-wise in the United States. I've had less problems with Muslims here for being trans than I've had from white folk. Mm-hmm. And one instance of this is my local cafe, right? It's run by a Turkish family who are Muslim. And there have been white people who've come in and objected to me using the female toilets, and they've said, no, it's my right. I've had white people abuse me when I've sat outside. They have always, referred to me as her, she, miss, madam, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, fucking, gammon, they're just, I mean, I understand that they feel shat upon and they're lashing out, but why do
I guess they've been oppressed, and so they understand oppression, and so they have more empathy, which is good. It's all about...
You hear these people say, "Oh, I've been treated like a second-class citizen of my own land," and you can go, "Oh, right. Are you getting spat upon? Are you getting discriminated against?"
Step in my shoes for a day. Let's see how this goes.
Yeah, exactly.
For you, with your privileged ass.
Talking of wankers like that, I heard you once or twice refer to a certain Paul Joseph Watson as Pajama Watson, which I'd like to thank you for doing, right? Because guess
Love me some PJ Watson with his DSLs. So sexy, Paul Joseph Watson. Yeah, I'm a pretty big enemy of Paul Joseph Watson. I've been
yeah,
shitting on him for years.
yeah. Well,
Horrible being.
guess who came out with Pajama Watson?
Who's that?
Me.
That you?
It
You
was in a
coined that
blog.
term?
Yeah,
Do I owe you royalties now?
yeah, I coined the term. Yeah, I'm very proud of that, and I'm hearing more and more
The
people
check's in the
use it.
mail.
Well, it's just that I remember a few years ago I wrote a blog piece and it was about you remember he said, oh, he did that video, he said capitalism's the greatest thing ever, right? And then about a year later he was whining about Black Friday and advertising, and I thought, hold on a moment, advertising is part of capitalism, Paul, and you said capitalism's the greatest thing on earth. Yeah, you're being a right here fucking hypocrite, not for the first time. And I was thinking, he never goes out, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
A recluse.
And I don't know why, it just popped in my head, Pajama Watson.
That's a perfect name for him. He's probably never wearing pants in his videos. I'm pretty sure.
Well,
Nude from the shirt down.
all these fucking assholes, they all live in mum's basement.
Mm-hmm.
But that's it. You know, they sit around pontificating all fucking day in mum's basement. They don't know how the other half live. They don't interact with people.
Yeah, he does. He seems very socially awkward. I've never really seen him out with people, and I kind of feel bad for him. But he's such a twat; it's hard to feel bad for him. He
Well,
clearly has issues, I think.
I, I, I did see him. He was at the BBC. Basically, decided to do a report on Alex Jones, and he was there with him at the Bilderberg meeting just outside London. And yeah, he didn't look comfortable. I don't know if it's because the cameras are there, but I've seen other photos, and he never looks comfortable.
It's getting sunlight on him. It's getting on me. Ooh, I'm outdoors.
Yeah, he's just been. I mean, all these far right cunts. All the way through the COVID-19 pandemic, they've done fuck all to help anyone, other than try and help themselves.
Well, that's what they always do. Take advantage of the situation, blow it out of proportion, scare people, frighten them so they buy their buckets of food.
Well, excuse me. You've had Paul Joseph Watson, Sargon, and Katie Hopkins, Nigel Farage. They've all, like, at one point or another, slagged off NHS staff. NHS is our universal healthcare system. Mm-hmm. Yeah, we have universal healthcare here.
Mm-hmm. Lucky. And rub it in.
Yeah. Well, it is, to me, it is the greatest British institution, because it has say I had a heart attack a couple of years ago, and it's actually saved my life. So,
well, here an ambulance ride costs $4,000. So people in other countries just have no idea how crazy it is. But people are taking Ubers to the hospital and stuff because they'll get charged $4,000 for an ambulance ride. It's just insane. There's no way you can pay for it.
Well, I was explaining. So they've all had to go at NHS staff, one way or another. The NHS staff are the ones who are risking their fucking lives to try and save people from COVID-19.
Yeah,
right? There's been a severe lack of personal protective equipment for them to use in treating people.
Same here.
Right? Mm-hmm. And all you have is the far right having a go at them. I hope people remember this when all this is over. Right?
Well, they're screaming at them. Here they walk up to nurses and scream at them. They're fake and they should be ashamed, or they're terrorists. It's the craziest thing. This Trump's America is just, I never thought I'd see anything like it in my lifetime. I thought after Bush, like, the Republicans would be done and that would be the worst I'd ever see. But it's surreal. It's like living in a dark comedy, living in this country now.
The difference here is, I would say that the far right here are, they suddenly, I mean, put it like this, right? If there is a march of the far right through London, right, they'll probably get about a couple of thousand. The counter demonstration will have 10,000.
Mm-hmm.
That's the difference. You know, as you say, in America, you know, healthcare workers are more likely to get abused and applauded. Here, every
Hmm.
Thursday night, you know, there's been a thing through the pandemic where people come out of their houses and applaud, you know, clap for the NHS. I wish people would shout louder that the NHS should get, you know, the equipment they need. Um, but you know, at least people are willing to try and show their appreciation for, you know, for people who are putting their lives at risk. The reason I keep banging on about the far right is that these are the people who always profess to be patriots and that they love their country. Well, if they love their
Hmm.
country so much, why aren't they fucking helping their fucking country? They're not. They're just grifting for them fucking selves.
They're LARPing. They're pretend. Most of them are like people that wish they were in the military, but were too cowardly or not good enough to be in the military, or they want to be cops. They're just wannabes who are pretending like they're some great heroes who are doing something for society, but all they're doing is carrying their guns and being terrorists and trying to intimidate people to do what they want under the threat of violence. And
Well, I was about to say you had that armed invasion of the Michigan State House by
mm-hmm.
a bunch of hillbillies last week.
Yep.
And I remember saying to Christy, I said, if that was a bunch of black people,
Mm-hmm. We already
who,
know how that go. We've already
yeah,
seen how that goes.
yeah, they would be called terrorists by Fox News, not protesters.
Well, they went on Native Americans' land when the Native Americans are protesting on their own land and water cannon them.
Yeah,
So not just black folks, any minority. But we have
oh,
this white privilege in this country still. People want to deny white privilege. I don't see how you can deny at this point. I mean,
uh,
I know I have white privilege. I feel it every day when I'm walking out. And like I live in an all black neighborhood and a town that is 65% black. So usually everywhere I go, I'm the only white person. And man, even amongst almost entirely black community, I have white privilege, incredible white privilege. So I don't know how anybody denies it anymore.
yes, and we've also had that recent shooting in, is it Georgia? I have seen it, um, of a black jogger.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And this will shock people.
Executed.
Yeah, this will shock people in the UK. The two guys who did it weren't arrested
Mm-hmm.
because it was seen as self-defense, first of all.
Yeah, like a new Trayvon Martin. They
Yeah,
finally got him arrested after months. Finally, when the video came out, went viral, they were pressured into doing so.
yeah. It's
But
this kind of stuff. You know, I mean, having been to the, you know, United States, I was shocked by the amount of police brutality there is. The fact that you hear stories, for instance, one story I heard was there was an illegal card game at some bar in, I think it was excuse me, uh, in the Midwest somewhere. I forgot what.
Iowa,
Yeah, that's it. Or yeah,
Idaho, one of
yeah,
those two.
so, yeah, one of those two. And rather than just the sheriff go down there and, you know, investigate, they sent the SWAT team in. Now, they arrested the guys and they were bringing them out. And one of them was shot because one of the SWAT people, the door of the van knocked their trigger arm and the gun went off.
Mm-hmm.
You know, people are dying because SWAT essentially
Yeah.
fuck up.
They send force first. Got to
Yeah.
shock and awe you. And of course,
Yeah.
we're incompetent, so incompetence is going to get people killed.
Right. Well, anyways, thank you for joining us. It's
No
been
problem.
a pleasure. Do you want to tell people where they can find you on social media?
Sure, I'm all over the place. If you want to watch me on YouTube, I'm youtube.com/Cult of Dusty. Facebook, I'm facebook.com Cult of Dusty. On Twitter, I'm Cult of Dusty1, Cult of Dusty1, Cult of Dusty1. Yep, you can find me everywhere. And I do my shows on Monday and Fridays, generally, 8 p.m. Central, 9 Eastern, U.S. time. And then I do a new show on Wednesdays called Religious Bullshit Wednesdays at the same time, 8 p.m. Central, 9 Eastern. So if you guys want to watch that, feel free to come join me. We have a really good audience and really good live chat.
All right. Well, my name is Sophia Botha. You can find me on Twitter at Sophia Botha 74. You can read my blog at blogofbotha.wordpress.com. And I will see you on the next video.
It was a pleasure. Thanks a lot.